Good evening. We'll be starting the presentation shortly.
Slide 1. Welcome and thank you for joining the Florida Department of Transportation in this virtual public meeting for the Blue Heron Boulevard Bridge Rehabilitation Project. Slide 2. Agenda. The following presentation will provide you with information on project improvements for the Blue Heron Boulevard Bridge over the Intracoastal Waterway in the city of Riviera Beach. You will find out what to expect during construction, including the project schedule and traffic impacts. But first, we will introduce the project team, go over the meeting format, and the rules of engagement. Following the presentation, project representatives will be available during a comment period to answer pertinent questions regarding the project. Slide 3. Project Team. Please meet our project representatives who will be addressing your comments and questions after the presentation. Bodler Barthelemy is the FDOT project manager. Al Bantz and Angela Foreman are members of the team overseeing the contractor on behalf of the department. Angel Gardner is the community outreach specialist who will provide ongoing information to the public on the project's progression. Slide 4. Also with us tonight is Jeff Jones and Yvette Benitez with Jones Benitez Corporation, the contractor for the project. Bing Wang, FDOT's design project manager, and John Danielson, the engineer of record. Slide 5. Meeting format. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format to provide multiple opportunities for the public to receive information and provide input. This format consists of both a virtual and face-to-face component. An in-person meeting will be held immediately following this virtual meeting at the Riviera Beach Marina Event Center, Hatcher Ballroom. There will be 2 presentations tonight, with each followed by a question and answer period. Slide 6. Public Notice. Public notice for this virtual public meeting, including information on how to access the meeting platform, was provided in letters to property owners and tenants in the project area, on social media feeds, on the FDOT website, and in the Florida Administrative Register. Slide 7. Participating on GoToWebinar. We are using the GoToWebinar meeting platform for the meeting. There is no cost to the public to log in or dial in to participate in the meeting. On your computer or device screen, you should see something that looks like this in the upper right corner. To listen to the meeting, your computer or device speakers are selected by default. If you prefer to listen by phone, select Telephone in the audio pane of the control panel and dial in using the information displayed. Slide 8. Rules of Engagement. Please be aware this virtual public meeting is being recorded. If you experience technical difficulties, please contact GoToWebinar support at 1-833-851-8340. All attendees will remain muted throughout the meeting. Attendees are welcome to submit any questions or comments using the platform's chat box at any time, and a member of the team will respond during the question and answer period. Please use the raised hand button to request to speak. The moderator will read the questions and comments in the order in which they are received. Please remember to limit your feedback to the subject project. Project representatives may not be able to fully address questions or comments regarding other topics or projects. Slide 9. Non-discrimination policy. The Florida Department of Transportation complies with various non-discrimination laws and regulations, including Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Public participation is solicited without regard to race, color, national origin, age, sex, religion, disability, or family status. Persons wishing to express their concerns relative to FDOT compliance with Title VI may do so by contacting FDOT District 4 Title VI Coordinator Sharon Singhayan at 954-777-4190 or sharon.singhayan at dot.state.fl.us, or they may contact FDOT State Title VI Coordinator Stefan Kulikowski at 850-414-4742 or stefan.kulikowski at dot.state.fl.us. Slide 10, Project Overview. Repairs will be made to the Blue Heron Boulevard Bridge over the Intracoastal Waterway. The project will begin in March 2023 and is anticipated to be completed in late 2023. The contractor building the project is Jones Benitez Corporation. The estimated cost of the project is $4.4 million. Slide 11, Project Improvements. Project improvements consist of replacing portions of the bridge deck in the outside westbound lane, repairing concrete on the bridge foundations, including the piers, columns, and beams, painting concrete portions of the bridge, milling and resurfacing the roadway at each end of the bridge, and adding new pavement markings. Slide 12. The bridge deck replacement will occur between spans 10 through 19. During demolition of the existing bridge deck, a containment system will be put in place to prevent debris from falling into the waterway or beach areas. Slide 13. Concrete repairs include fixing spalls and cracks in the bridge's foundations. Concrete restoration will occur at various locations. Slide 14. Traffic impacts. During the deck replacement, there will be one lane of traffic in each direction. Before and after the deck replacement, single-lane closures may occur from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Sunday through Saturday, and 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. Sunday through Thursday. Full closures of the eastbound lanes may occur 9 p.m. Monday through 7 a.m. Saturday, with traffic detoured to PGA Boulevard via US 1. Westbound and eastbound lanes will not be closed simultaneously. Pedestrian detours will be in place during sidewalk closures. Access to adjacent properties will be maintained. Slide 15. Beach closure. Phil Foster Park will remain open. However, the beach area under the bridge will be closed during the deck replacement. The beach, south of Blue Heron Boulevard, will remain accessible to the public. Slide 16. Beach closure. Fencing will be installed to prevent public access to the beach and recreational areas under the bridge. The beach will be closed through fall 2023. Slide 17. What to expect during construction. To limit the duration of beach closure and traffic restrictions, FDOT is providing cash incentives to the contractor to reopen travel lanes and the beach by mid-August. The contractor also faces disincentives if the westbound lanes and beach are not reopened by September 1st. Advance notice will be provided of lane closures. Work zone signs will be placed east and west of the work zone. Marine traffic will be maintained. Construction activities will not impact the boat ramp, docks, or fishing pier at Phil Foster Park. Slide 18. Community outreach. Public outreach will be ongoing throughout construction. Please contact Community Outreach Specialist Angel Gardner with any questions or concerns you may have. Project updates will be provided via email or door-to-door as needed. Ongoing coordination will occur with Riviera Beach and Palm Beach Shore city officials, community groups, and property owners. All project updates will be posted to the project website and provided to city officials. Slide 19. Safety is a top priority at the Florida Department of Transportation. Remember, safety is in your hands. You have a choice every time you get behind the wheel. Plan for adequate time to get to your destination. Never use your smartphone or other electronic devices while driving. The choice is yours. Make the safe one. Slide 20. Questions and answers. At this moment, we will proceed with the question and answer portion of the meeting. To submit questions and comments, please use the GoToWebinar question panel. As a reminder, please limit your queries to the subject project.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Just want to introduce myself again. My name is Angel Gardner. I'm going to be moderating tonight's virtual public meeting. Before we start, I want to just make sure if we have any elected officials in the audience, if you could identify yourself in the question box, and we'll go ahead and recognize you. Okay. Not seeing any at this moment. I'm going to go ahead and open up the question and answer session. Just a reminder, we are going to, excuse me, there is a handout as well if y'all want to download that. It's basically a fact sheet that provides more information about the project. So we already have our first question, so let's go ahead and jump to that. That question is, can they provide a safe passageway for scuba divers under parts of the bridge for the following months? So I'm going to ask Bing, if you could, would you be able to address that, please?
Yes. This is Bing Wang, and I'm a design project manager. And during the design, FDOT explored the several options to try to provide access underneath the bridge. I think we coordinated with county, we coordinated with the park, we coordinated with the city. I think the first option we explore is like, can we like move the project to other seasons, such as like winter season, have less people do the diving, and then that will be make project start about September. That will like everybody knows September, October will be like heavy hurricane season. So we want to make sure like all 4 lane open for the public for the hurricane evacuation. And also that will impact the tourist season as well. So that option was look at it. We think it's not a very good one. Then we also look at the phase construction as you suggested. We try to do phase like several span at a time, like 2 span and move rolling, but that will cost 3 times construction time extension, and of course increase the construction costs a lot. So we look at every way for the faster way and the safe to everybody is close to the beach, and tear down all the like deck, the spans, and pull it as quick as possible. So FDOT put incentive in the construction time for contract like $150,000 per day to make sure the contract speed up, try to finish as soon as possible, get in, get out. We are do our best, try to get out there like by August. So in this way, by the very heavy hurricane season, September, October, all 4 lane is open for the public. We understand that have an inconvenience for everybody. Also, you speak of pathway, it's FDOT look at it, it's really not really safe. Just in case one being fall down, so it's not, it's a big accident, so you will not want underneath that bridge. So for that reason, we really cannot provide pathway at this moment. We don't think it's a very good, safe option for the public. So please understand. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation, Bing. That's very helpful. So we're going to move on to our next question. That's from Phyllis. Phyllis is asking, how will scuba diving be affected in the area? Al, I'm going to ask you to address that, because the ideal is to have the scuba divers be able to cross over Blue Heron to get to the beach that's going to remain accessible, correct?
Yes. The beach is going to be closed that's located directly under the bridge. However, as the presentation stated, the beach that's located to the south and the east will still remain open. So for divers, they would need to go over to the park entrance and cross over Blue Heron, utilizing the crosswalk at the traffic signal. And they would be able to go down onto that open portion of the beach at the southeast quadrant, and they would be able to go in the water over there.
All right, thank you for that, Al. The next question we have is a good follow-up question. This is from Melissa Johnson. She's asking, the current beach entry plan during construction features stairs. Will there be any handicap accessible beach access in place during construction? John, can you address that, please?
Oh, get my, hold on one second here. There we go, I think. Yes, so right now there are stairs on that end, the south end of the crosswalk. And at this time, we're investigating if we can put a ramp there. There's not a ramp there today because it is not required by the government to provide one there, because it actually goes to a beach. But we will be evaluating if we'll discuss, I think we're going to discuss it with the city and the county to see if it's needed. You know, there's not one there now for the reason that once a wheelchair or a walker gets onto the beach, there's no walkway for them. So we'll see how, if it's needed, we'll put it there. Definitely put it there, a temporary one.
All right, thank you for that, John. I have another question here from Paul Shepard. We already touched on this a little bit, but we can go ahead and ask this question again. Why can they not open a walkway under the bridge so divers can walk through? This will reduce the impact to traffic and increase safety of drivers walking across the road. So again, being maybe Mr. Shepard didn't hear entirely, but if you could explain why we are not able to do that at this time.
Okay, as we emphasize, like safety always our top priority for FDOT. Imagine when you tear up, remove the deck above your head on the bridge in case big piece of concrete falling down or a beam falling down. That will really unsafe for anybody, not construction worker underneath the bridge. So for this reason, it's not good option, especially we just hope everybody can understand. We try our best to shorten the construction season to make everybody can access speed normally as soon as possible, but in safe way. So that temporary pathway, whatever built is under there, is not safe for anybody. Please understand. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Bing. Appreciate that.
And Angel, I can
Tyler, do you want to expand on that? Go ahead.
There you go. Regarding crossing the intersection, all the signalization movements will be functioning. Pedestrians and and vehicle movement. So we want to make sure that when people crossing the intersection and they're doing safely, make sure that you use the pedestrians signalized movement, so that at least when you cross over, you're not crossing over the traffic. So it will be safe. All the movements will be functioning normally as it is out there. So it will be safe to cross when it's possible to do so.
Thank you for that additional information, Butler. It's very helpful. So I have another question here. We already sort of addressed this, but let's address it again. This is from Rod Fonseca. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. And he's asking, how can scuba divers access the bridge safely for diving? So Al, you explained that before. If you could explain it again, that the southeast corner of the bridge will be accessible.
Sure. As I had said before, the area under the bridge will be closed for safety reasons while the construction is going on. However, divers will still have access to the beach that's located on the southeast quadrant. They would have to walk to the park entrance at the traffic signal and utilize the crosswalk to get across Blue Heron and go down the stairs onto the beach. We at this point in time cannot allow divers to go across the beach underneath the bridge because we're going to be having the overhead demolition activities as well as the reconstruction, and that can be very dangerous to the public, and we're not going to put the public in that type of risk.
Thank you for that, Al. Next question is from Michael Bastos. Again, these questions or comments are still pretty much following the same theme. His comment and question is, there are divers who are physically unable to make the walk and go down the stairs. Why can't the passage be a narrow pathway down the beach on the side that is most narrow to the beach? Under Disabilities Act, there needs to be access. Bing, you want to answer that again?
Okay, if somebody will pull up the slide show, like which the area is we demolition of the deck. So that area is cover all the area underneath the bridge, the beach portion. If somebody can pull up that slide, please.
Yeah, give us a minute. We'll go to it.
Yeah. If you look at this,
go back one more, Chuck. There you go, right there.
Yes, that's basically is cover all the beach area underneath the bridge. The deck will have a demolition activity, so it's really not safe for any pedestrian or divers underneath that bridge.
That's perfect. Thank you, Bing. Melissa Johnson, she did have a follow-up question. She asked, will the pedestrian crossing times be extended at the park entrance stoplight to give people more time to cross the street? That's a very good question. Al, can you address that, please?
Right now, we are going to be reaching out to Palm Beach County traffic operations individuals and see if we can't work on getting that crossing time extended. That's something that's beyond the control of the DOT, but in a partnering spirit, we'll be reaching out to try and get that accomplished and see if we can make a compromise and get it extended.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Al. That's a good response. Next question we have here is from Joseph, and he's asking, he said, our concern is the negative eco impact and reducing the trash impact. I understand the catch nets, but will there be extra waste containers for debris and for workers' trash? Also, whom can we contact to help with any trash concerns, whether providing extra trash bins or times of general cleanup? Thank you. That's a very good question. Al, if you can address that, and then we might have maybe Yvette address it too, as far as making sure workers aren't, throwing trash on the beach. So I'm gonna have Al do it, and then I'm gonna ask Yvette or Jeff to follow up.
Well, the work zone areas will have dedicated trash areas and trash bags for the workers to be able to dispose of their consumables and other things. In addition, there will be, during the course of construction, will also be some dedicated areas that there will be for debris and other construction materials, so that they can be compiled and loaded up and removed from the site as necessary. If there is a concern with trash, we have inspectors out there that you can either contact the inspectors that'll be on site, or you can reach out to one of us at the office and bring it to our attention via email or telephone, and we can investigate it and see if there's anything that's merited. We go out there and try and address it with the contractor.
That was great. Thank you for that. Yvette or Jeff, did you guys want to add anything to that? No, you're good. Okay. All right. Thank you. Next follow-up question we have, excuse me, it's not a follow-up question, an additional question we have from Rod Finesca is, how can we ensure marine life will be protected and not be disturbed? Al, I'm going to ask you to address that question too, if you could, please.
Okay. As we're stating, the beach area itself is going to be closed. The marine area, the water, is still going to be available for the divers to use. What we're going to do to further protect the environment is that we're going to have turbidity barrier out in the water in areas where there's going to be construction. We are going to be restricting our barge anchoring or securing of our barges to areas where there is not any protected or endangered species. And we are going to provide countermeasures on if there's at the scuppers to try and make sure that there's nothing that's going to transpire and fall down in there. The work area will be cordoned off, and we will be taking precautions to make sure that there's no spillage or anything underneath the bridge that could damage the environment as well.
Thank you for that, Al. Next question we have is from Melissa. Melissa is asking, again, along the same lines regarding access underneath the bridge. She says, in the larger cities, they create scaffolding to protect sidewalks for pedestrians. Why can't you do that here? John, can you address that, please?
Yeah, I'll do my best on that. So that's a good question. The reason is we're removing concrete on the deck that it will be going to a reef, and those pieces will be quite large. They will be, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 tons a piece. So we do not know any enclosure or walkway system that would stand up to that kind of weight. The ones that you see in New York City or Miami, it's basically for a hammer dropping or some light material. These are large pieces that are going to be picked up with a crane, set on a truck, and then eventually set on a barge to go to an off-site storage or a reef in the intercoastal. So yes, that's the reason why we don't think that's a good idea.
Okay, thank you for that, John. Okay, next question we have is from Lorraine Johnson. And she's asking, worst hurricanes July and August. What about changing from November to April? So that's a good question too, as far as timing of the project. Bing, can you answer that, please? I guess she's basically asking, why not schedule between November and April? Start in November and ending in April. Start the project instead of in November rather than now.
As I said, like the season always starts at the tourist season start in November, and most likely last to April. Usually is the first 2 weeks of April. Then the season will be ending. So that's the reason we think that will, when the tourist season comes, we want to keep all 4 lanes open for the tourists, because that's the major economy for the state as well. And also it's good for a lot of business owner around the area. That's the reason we think we should keep outside the season in the construction.
Thank you, Bing. So basically, it's, you know, if it started in November, we would be impacting the season when there's a lot more traffic on the roads. And so that's why November would not have been ideal. We have another follow-up question from Melissa Johnson. She says, do you anticipate parking lot closures or restrictions during construction? So I think she's referring to Phil Foster Park. Al, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to address that in terms of any further impacts at Phil Foster Park.
No, we do not anticipate any restrictions in the parking lot areas. Phil Foster Park, our intent is for that park to remain open so that voters can use the ramps and the other facilities are still going to be available. So at this juncture, we don't anticipate having any restrictions on the parking in the long term. Generally speaking, I believe it's the contractor's intent that once the traffic shift occurs, his workers will be staging up onto the under the bridge area so that they will not have any need to be down in the parking lot area, other than unless they're down in the work zone taking care of construction activities.
Thank you for that, Al. We have a comment from Brian Glenwright. He says, divers will be at risk having to cross the road at the signal light. All we need is a 10-foot wide path that you're not working over, and change that path when the workers move. So I guess they're thinking maybe some sort of phasing would allow that to happen, but I believe that was looked at. John, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So we did look at that during the design phase. And what Bing alluded to previously in our opening statement was that, yes, that's possible. The contractor, to expedite the project, will do all the removal at one phase and then go back and start pouring concrete. And if he were to, let's say, do 2 spans, remove that span, and that'll be corded off. Let's say that's corded off, and then pour it. It's not an assembly line anymore. And like Bing was saying, that it's probably going to take 3 times as long, and we're going to go into the season, and it's going to be a lot more costly. Right now, it's 4.4 million. We budgeted 3.3, so it's over budget now. So those are the reasons. It's more efficient to remove. Contractor's going to remove all the spans, demolition, all the spans, collect all the concrete, and then start pouring the concrete. And during those times, there shouldn't be anyone anywhere near that work. So those are the reasons that we alluded to, and then we put the incentive in there as well to get this work done, because coordinating with the city and the county and the local officials, it was real important that we get those lanes of traffic, 4 lanes back, with because we have 2 lanes during hurricane season. We have an evacuation. It's a pretty long way for a detour. So really important. We wanted to get this open as fast as we could, and that's why we want to close the bridge the entire length of that construction. There's also other work being done. We're not just replacing the deck. We're also fixing concrete spalls throughout the area, in that same area right there. And we're also pressure washing the bridge, and we're going to seal it with a paint. So all that work will be done under that bridge at different times, and during all those events, we want that beach closed, basically.
Don, I want you to stay on for this other response as well. You already addressed this, but let's talk about it again. For able-bodied divers, this is an annoyance, but for our disabled divers, disabled veterans, this unique dive site is inaccessible. What accommodations are you making for such divers in compliance with the ADA?
So as I talked to this question earlier, we will be working with the city and the county, and we'll work with the contractor if we need to get a temporary ramp on that one side. We'll add it to the contract. During the design phase, let me pull up my notes here, but the access to trails, parking, picnic areas, and beach are not covered by ADA, but we understand that if that is needed, the DOT will include it, even though it's not covered under the ADA Act. But we will be discussing it with the city and the DOT and we'll provide one if we need to.
Thank you for that, John. I believe the next question, you've already responded to that just now, which was, will that beach also be wheelchair accessible? So the response you just provided answers that question.
The ramp will, but when you get onto the beach, I don't know if we can put a walkway on the beach to the ocean without a permit. I don't know. We'd have to discuss that internally.
Thank you for that clarification. And so Meg Lovelace is also asking a similar question. Is there anything else that can be done for handicapped divers? Again, like John mentioned, some options are potentially being explored. Next question was the same question as well. This is from Margaret Jorgensen. I traveled from Ohio to Rivera Beach 3 times last year for about 2 weeks each. I'm 76 years old. I like diving Blue Heron Bridge because it's accessible for me. What arrangements are being made for accessibility? John answered that question. Ms. Stanton just wanted to follow up with a response saying access is needed. We have a beach wheelchair there and dive there all the time. Thank you for your comment, Ms. Stanton. Next question we have is from Andrew Chen. What measures will be in place to limit the risk involved with cars turning right out of the park, conflicting with the increased pedestrian traffic crossing the street? Al, you touched on this a little bit, but can you follow up one more time if you could regarding signal timing?
Could you repeat the question, please?
I'll repeat that question. What measures will be in place to limit the risk involved with cars turning right out of the park, conflicting with the increased pedestrian traffic crossing the street? So in other words, when people are leaving the park and they're going to try to go westbound on Blue Heron.
We'll be, the construction team, CEI team will be reaching out to Palm Beach County traffic operations engineers to look at the possibility of extending some of the crosswalk timing to allow for the pedestrians to be able to get across Blue Heron over to the other side.
Thank you for that, Al. I also have a comment from Margaret Jorgensen. She said, have you any idea how difficult it is for a 76-year-old with knee replacement to wear scuba gear the distance from the parking lot and then up and down the stairs? Thank you for that comment, Ms. Jorgensen. I think the team is definitely cognizant of, the inconvenience this is having for some people in the public, and we're going to try to be accommodating as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think they need to realize again that the reason why the beach has to be closed is for a safety issue. And while we recognize that there's some challenges in being able to get down into the area where you can dive, we're doing this for the public safety to make sure that no one will be injured or have any falling debris during demolition or any other construction activities that will be taking place.
Thank you, Al. Melissa had a follow-up response, and so I want to clarify this. She says the answer above states that no scuba diving will be allowed during construction. That's not correct. Scuba diving will still be allowed during construction. It's just that access will not be possible under the bridge. So scuba diving will not be limited. Access will still be provided at the southeast section of the bridge. So I just wanted to clarify that. There are no limits to the scuba diving. Ms. Johnson had a follow-up question, and her question is, are you working on the whole span under the bridge at the same time? Al, can you address that, please? I'm going to ask.
The contractor is going to be performing demolition starting at the abutment and going all the way up. He's not going to do staged construction whereby he demolishes one or two spans and then goes back, puts his forms in and pours. His intent is to start at the abutment, work his way up for the limit, and then he's going to come back as a production line, install his forms, and then go ahead and place his concrete. In addition, depending on his choice of staging, as John had mentioned earlier in the presentation, there are other activities that are going to need to take place under there. There's going to be concrete restoration that's going to be taking place on the columns and the undersides of the deck. So that's going to involve chipping concrete. It's going to be involved installing some mortar over there. And then the entire area is going to be cleaned and a coating, class 5 coating will be applied. So throughout the entire duration of the construction, there's going to be activities that are going to be taking place under that bridge as well as on top of the bridge. And if we were to have any area that would be open for access for the public to get across, that could impede contractor operations. And as we've said before, we want to try to have the structure back open to 4-lane traffic before the height of the hurricane season, which is going to be in September, October, later in the year, where there's a higher probability of severe storms to come in, so that we can have the ability to have it as an evacuation route again, because this is a dedicated evacuation route, so safety is paramount.
Thank you for that, Al. I had another question from Paul Seldes. Following up, He says, will law enforcement be present to ensure the safety of disabled persons attempting to reach the dive area? Al, can you address that, please?
Right now, contract plans do not have a requirement for any law enforcement officers. We will be reaching out to Palm Beach County Traffic Operations to look at extending the crossing signal time, and hopefully that will be adequate. If there's still issues following that timing adjustment to the signals, then we'll have to look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Al. I have another question here from Ann Lewin. Can you supply a fixture to lock carts that we can use to carry scuba gear over? I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask Al, can you try to address that question? I mean, I don't think there's any plans for that now.
No, we currently don't have any plans for for either the contractor or the department to be providing carts. You know, perhaps the dive businesses could provide carts to help facilitate, or even the visitors. We have the information for the construction project out there on the internet, and hopefully the visitors might check that before things happen, and they may realize that they may have to bring their own cart as well.
I think maybe some of the dive shops are trying to work with their customers to come up with various plans to accommodate their customers. The next question we have here is from Scott Odette. He's asking, why can't a temporary water access point be put in by the fishing pier? Seems like the fencing could be cut and stairs added, maybe. I think that's what she means, or he meant. So why can't a temporary water access point be put in by the fishing pier? Seems like the fencing could be cut and stairs added. John, I'm gonna ask you was that something that was considered or looked to? Was that an option?
You can see the fishing pier, I think, on the screen, right? So that is raised up, and there's a seawall there. So we didn't look at how you can modify that to get people in the water, but I'd have to go look. I mean, right there, you can see there's no problem if divers want to, sit on that seawall and jump in the water right there. Oh, they still have to construct. Yeah, there's still, yeah.
Be a barge there.
There's going to be turbidity barrier on the other side of that fishing pier that's going to go wrap around all those columns you see in the water right there. So the divers would have to go to the inlet, almost the channel, and then go back east to the area where they like to dive. So that is, yeah, we wouldn't recommend you doing that. I mean, it's open, that fishing pier will be open and that whole area will be open, but yeah, it's nothing that we would recommend that you do.
One thing that I'd like to add is that in the previous slide that we were looking at the partial part of the deck replacement as it impacted the beach and that crosshatch area that was representing the beach closure. The work and restoration along the deck replacement actually extends out over the water and almost out to the under system where the actual boating channel is. So as John pointed out, there's going to be a big barrier that's going to be going around. Looking at the slides upside down, you're seeing that there's actually 3 piers that are in the water there. There's going to be big barriers that's going to be circling those barges out there that are going to be again engaged in concrete restoration as well as coating of that substructure. So that's another reason why access coming off of either the seawall or that fishing pier would not be a very good idea.
Thank you for that, Al and John, both of you. I do have a hand raised by Gary Miyakawa. I'm going to unmute you, and you would have to unmute yourself if you want to go ahead and speak. Go ahead, Gary.
Thank you very much. I have a question about it, and it's probably deals with the barge and that area underneath, of whether or not they're going to provide some sort of underwater fencing so that we know as a diver not to go into an area where the barge is or something like that, something to protect the divers. Thank you very much. I'll go back mute.
That's a good question, Gary. John, excuse me, not John. Jeff, I would normally ask you to say that, answer that, but John, yeah, John can answer that. Okay, thank you, John.
Yes, you did. So those turbidity barriers are bright yellow, and they're going to hang about 5 feet under the ground, under the water, I'm sorry. So you're going to have to look for them. They're not going to go all the way to the bottom. Fish still need to go under those barriers, so we don't want to trap fish. So it's kind of like a, one or the other. So they're going to go 5 feet down. You'll be able to see them 5 feet down. So, and then there'll be notices. You'll see notices posted today, I think, right on the beach that there's going to be activity coming, and I'm sure there's going to be some signs in the water too for the boaters. Here comes the contractor's here, but he's doesn't have his mic. So hopefully that answers the question. I know you're still on. If you're live, if you can follow up if you want.
I think he was, he's still on, but he doesn't have any further questions. There's another hand raised by David Levine. David, I'm gonna unmute you. You wanna go ahead and you're gonna have to unmute yourself. There you go, go ahead.
Thank you for taking my question. I'm just wondering if, since there's no additional accommodations, then we're still gonna have to walk across the bridge, or actually the road. The stairs we're taking will obviously be crowded as well as filled with sand and water, what have you, making it additionally a little tricky to get down. Is there any plans to put extra maintenance or maintain those stairs so it is as safe as possible for those that decide to use the stairs?
Yeah, so that might be something we could probably direct to Palm Beach County Parks and Recreation. We can definitely follow up with them, Mr. Levine, and see if there might be the potential to have that occur. But thank you definitely for that question.
Thank you.
Thank you. I did see one more hand, so just give me a second as I'm, yes. Carrie Lauer, I've unmuted you. If you could just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question. Oh wait, she took her hand down, so maybe she changed her mind. Okay. No, wait, she's back. Okay. Carrie, you're muted, so you need to unmute yourself. Mrs. Lauer, Carrie Lauer, if you want to go ahead and ask a question, just unmute your microphone.
Mute myself. Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, old guy. Technology is not my thing. I want to address revisit the possible temporary access on the west side of the bridge, north of the small fishing bridge. That area is often considered what a lot of frequent divers call is the west side. And it's not unusual to dive under that small bridge, go to the channel, dive between the channel and the where the bridge actually sits to gain access to the snorkel trail or the park itself, the underwater side of the park. My question is, why is that not a possibility? Because that would totally eliminate walking under the bridge. The divers would then be submerged and shouldn't cause that problem.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Al, can you address that question again? Why that might not be the best option?
Well, part of the reason why access over there on that end would not be a very good idea, as you can see on the graphic that's now up on the screen, we're showing the beginning and the ending limits of the deck replacement. The deck work actually extends out into the water, almost out to the channel area. And so in addition to having the demolition and the reconstruction activities that are going to be taking place on the top side, there's also going to be reconstruction activities, the restoration activities that are going to be taking place on the piers below, which are going to involve concrete restoration as well as painting. In the water area, there's going to be a floating turbidity barrier, which is basically going to extend from the seawall west out to the pier just before the fender system, looping around, and it's going to come back to the seawall again. And in there, we're going to have barges that are going to be staged in order to do these construction activities. Might not be a good idea for divers to be trying to get through the area in the work zone at that point.
Is there any possibility of a entrance, diver entrance with the by the where the boats launch?
Carrie, can you repeat that again?
I said, is there any possibility of making a temporary entrance over by where the boats launch? There's dockage that could contain the divers on one side and the boats on the other. I'm just looking for a way not to go under that bridge and not to go over the road.
I mean, that's a really great idea. The Phil Foster Park is not a park that's actually owned by the department. It's not a state park. It's actually by Palm Beach County, and any concessions and access in that area would have to be, discussed and agreed upon by Palm Beach County, not with Florida DOT.
So are you saying that's an option or that's not an option?
That is something that we would not be able to discuss because we are working on a state-owned right-of-way, and the park is maintained by Palm Beach County. If the divers would like to coordinate and have discussions with Palm Beach County regarding the possibility of a different location for access to the water, that's something that you would have to take the initiative and reach out to the county for.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking my question.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We are going to be having to wrap up shortly for our 6:30 in-person session. So I do have one more hand raised from Jeffrey Misekian. Jeffrey, I'm unmuting you. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Misekian. I have a place in North Palm Beach. I'm from up north in Connecticut and just down here for, the snowbird type thing. But I have a disability, a spinal cord injury, from age 3. And I come down here and I go dive at the Blue Heron Bridge. I hire a guide at 4C. And, I've gone a few dives, several dives over there over the years. And typically when it's done, it is more of a process. I mean, I park in a handicapped spot as close to the water, walk under the bridge, go in the water, and the guide that I'm with, usually makes several trips, say back and forth, bringing gear and bringing my crutches back to his car, and it's a process. It's not a huge process, but one that would be inconvenience for him and, and for me, if I had to walk much further than say, where we park and where the water line is. So I know there's, changes, there's work being done, but, my dives would be impacted and I just wouldn't really dive if it's much, if you're talking going over the bridge, walking across the street or, walking much further from, and sometimes those handicapped spots are even occupied. So it's not even, I don't even get as close to the water as I'd like, but I just wanted to just voice my concern and, that would, kind of impact me and some interest in diving at the bridge from visiting up north.
Thank you for that, Jeffrey. Thank you for providing that, that input and feedback. We appreciate it. I'm going to see if we can do one more question. We are going into our in-person session, but I do want to address this one question from Angelica Freston. She's asking, will there be construction equipment in the water? Al, can you address that, please, on behalf of Jeff?
Yeah, as we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, there will be barges that are going to be staged in the water under the bridge, basically in the vicinity from the west seawall to just behind the fender system, so that they can gain access to the piers underneath to be able to do concrete restoration as well as the recoating. And then on top of that, so there will be the barges there. The turbidity barrier will surround the work area, and we'll also have the overhead activities. But yes, there'll be barges out there.
Thank you for that, Al. So we're going to go ahead and end this Q&A. For those people whose questions we did not address, we still have your information and we have your questions, and we'll definitely follow up with you to address those questions. So just give us some time. We are going to move into our in-person session of the meeting. So Chuck, can you go ahead and finish up the presentation? Thank you.
Slide 21. Additional comments, questions. This concludes the question and comment portion of our meeting. If your question was not responded to during the open discussion, our project team will follow up with you. All comments and questions submitted are part of the public record for this virtual meeting. You will receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to the recording of today's meeting. The meeting recording also will be available on the project website. Slide 22. Contact us. Throughout the project representatives will be available to address any questions or concerns you may have. Slide 23. On behalf of the Florida Department of Transportation and our presenters, thank you for joining us today. Stay safe and be well.